I had a client tell me something that just stopped me in my tracks. And he said, Cody, I just turned down a raise at work. And I said, okay, why? He said, well, I didn't want to get pushed into a higher tax bracket only to just take home less money. And the crazy thing is, he's not alone. I hear versions of this all the time. And it's not because people are careless or bad with money. It's just that nobody ever really explains how the tax system works in this country in a way that actually makes sense to people. So, what I want to do is walk through it together because once you understand this, it'll change how you look at income, raises, and most importantly, retirement planning. So, first, we need to clear up the biggest misunderstanding, I think, which is that most people think tax brackets work like a switch. Like you cross a line and suddenly all of your income is taxed at a much higher rate. So if you go from, let's say, the 12% bracket to the 22% bracket, people think, great, now everything I make is going to be taxed at 22%. That's the fear. That's why someone like my friend would turn down a raise. But that's not actually how the tax system works in the United States, and it's frankly not even close. So the US has what we call a progressive tax system, and that's really the easiest way to understand it is the following. So think of it like filling buckets, right? Each bucket gets filled at a different tax rate. So your first bucket gets filled and taxed at 10%. Then once that's full, the next dollars spill into the next bucket at 12%, then the next at 22%, and so on. So your income is actually being taxed in layers, right? Not all at once. And what I wanted to do was really make this real with some simple numbers. So let's say that you are a single filer. Your first chunk of income, roughly the first $11,000, is going to be taxed at 10%. Then the next chunk up to around 48 grand is taxed at 12%. Now here's the key. Only the money above that level gets taxed at 22%. Not everything, just that portion. So let's go back to the client that I talked about in the beginning. He's making $50,000. He gets offered a raise to 55,000. And in his mind, he's thinking, you know what? I'm going to be going into a higher tax bracket. I'm going to get crushed on taxes. But let's talk about, or let's show you what actually happens. So his first 50,000, nothing changes. It's taxed exactly as it was before, right? The only thing that will change is the new $5,000. That's it, right? And yes, that $5,000 might fall now into the 22% bracket, but let's do the math. So 22% of 5,000 is 1,100. So he pays about $1,100 in additional taxes, which means he keeps about 3,900. So instead of making less money, he's actually taking home nearly $4,000 more per year. And that's the part that a lot of people miss, right? So this is where I want to introduce two terms, but I want to keep it, third grade simple, right? So you've got your marginal tax rate and you've got your effective tax rate, okay? Your marginal rate is the rate on your last dollar. Your effective rate is what you're actually paying across everything. And for most people, those two numbers are going to be very different, right? Because someone might say, look, I'm in the 22% tax bracket. But in reality, their overall effective rate might be 12 or 14%, something like that. Because remember, not all of their income is going to be taxed at 22%, only a slice of it. And I want to take this just one step further because, we haven't even gotten to deductions yet, right? So before your income even hits those tax brackets, you've got things working in your favor just for the benefit of being an American citizen, right? Which is called the standard deduction, retirement contributions like a 401k, health savings accounts. All of those are going to reduce your taxable income, right? So in many cases, people think they're in a certain bracket, but after those deductions, they actually get significantly lower or they are kind of right on the edge. And this is where planning starts to matter greatly because now we're not just reacting to taxes. We can actually start to control them. But coming back to the main point, a raise will never make you worse off. Okay. And this is what I tried to tell my buddy. There is no scenario where making more money causes you to take home less because of tax brackets by themselves. That doesn't exist. We always say you can't let the taxes drive the bus because sometimes that bus crashes. So the only thing that happens is that the extra income might be taxed at a slightly higher rate. That's it. And he's still going to be ahead. And this is one of those moments where behavior really matters because if you don't understand how this works, you're probably going to make a decision that feels safe, but it's actually going to cost you money over time. And in some cases, it can cost thousands and thousands of dollars over time. And I see this actually show up in bigger ways too, right? People people avoid bonuses because the taxes they take out. They avoid Roth conversion. They avoid realizing capital gains, all because of this same misunderstanding. And look, for sure, taxes matter. They matter a lot, but they need to be understood. Unfortunately, we don't teach this very well, not in high school, not in university, but we shouldn't fear them because once you understand how the tax system works, we can start making decisions with intention instead of guessing. So, if there's one thing that I want you to kind of take away from this, it is the following. Moving into a higher tax bracket does not mean all of your income is going to be taxed at that higher rate. Only the dollars above that line are. Everything below it is going to stay exactly the same. And in the case of my client, again, that misunderstanding cost him about $4,000 a year for no reason, right? And that's real money. So if you want help understanding how this applies to your specific situation, whether that's from an income planning standpoint or retirement strategy, I'm always happy to have a conversation and help you get pointed in the right direction. As always, there's a link below. You can schedule a 30-minute call, no pressure, just clarity and clarification on where you're at and where that's taking you. I hope this helped, and I'll see you on the next video.